Oklahoma has found themselves in an interesting quarterback position. After losing Dylan Gabriel to the transfer portal to Oregon, they ended up going with Jackson Arnold. He was a 5-star prodigy quarterback coming out of Denton Guyer High School in Texas, and after looking shaky in last year's bowl game, many were expecting Arnold to take over in 2024 and fix his flaws. Unfortunately, throughout the first month of the season, Arnold was not very good. Instead, a true freshman by the name of Michael Hawkins Jr. kind of came out of nowhere and has taken over the starting spot. After leading them to a road victory over Auburn, he'll now become the first true freshman to ever start against Texas this upcoming weekend in the Red rivalry game. But if you do a deep dive into who Michael Hawkins Jr. is, all of this is not that surprising. He said he never wanted to come sit at Oklahoma, he put up huge numbers in a really good Texas high school football system, and came from a lineage of good football. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the freshman quarterback who has to save Oklahoma football, Michael Hawkins Jr. We're going to go through his story, his recruitment, talk about how he got to this point, and how good he could be for the rest of this season. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about the insane rise of Michael Hawkins Jr. So in order to understand how Hawkins Jr. got to this point, we first need to go back in time. He has a very strong legacy connection because his dad, Michael Hawkins Sr., played defensive back for the Oklahoma Sooners in the early 2000s and also played for the Dallas Cowboys in the NFL. From playing with Brett Favre and Tony Romo and against the likes of Tom Brady and Drew Brees, Hawkins Sr. knew well how defenders worked against quarterbacks and would use that knowledge to teach Hawkins how to break down defenses. Like father, like son, the two kids fell in love with football and were gifted at it. Michael was always special, and because of the help of his dad, was on a good path. He said, quote, "Ever since I started playing football going into middle school and then deeper into high school, he's always got my coverage game going really good. He made me understand coverages to the point where if a coach would ask me something, I would know automatically, and he just elevated my game a lot since I've grown up playing football." In 8th grade, Hawkins Jr. began working with Kevin Murray, the father of Kyler Murray, which further amplified his game. He also got to go to a very special high school known as Allen. They were a 5-time state champion, and they play in a $60 million stadium, and it's one of the state and nation's most high-profile high school football programs. Both him and his brother eventually became football stars there as well, and would get high major recruiting offers. Malik Hawkins started out as defensive back, and is currently a big 2025 recruit who's committed to Oklahoma. Hawkins would really start to blow up as a Texas high school starter in his sophomore year, as he threw for 2,800 yards with 21 touchdowns, and also ran for 1,100 yards and 12 scores on the ground. During his sophomore year at Allen, his coach was actually Chad Morris, the former head man at Arkansas and SMU, and he actually credits Morris for preparing him to advance in his high school career. As a junior in 2022, Hawkins helped lead Allen to a by-district playoff appearance behind over 2,000 passing yards and 20 touchdowns, paired with over 400 rushing yards and 3 more scores on the ground. He had been the highest-rated quarterback recruit at Allen since number 1 overall pick Kyler Murray, but then the world would change for Hawkins and his family. One morning, the family woke up and there was a racist wording on his garage door. It read, quote, "We don't need you here in Allen," and then an explicit word. This was written in tall black lettering across the left side of his house and on their white garage door. Allen's mayor said, quote, "It is extremely disheartening to learn of this incident. This language and behavior is inexcusable and has no place in a supportive, welcoming community such as Allen." The police would eventually respond and file a report at 7:57 a.m. that morning, and according to a copy shown to the news, it was considered damage and vandalism of the property. Something worth noting is that apparently the family had listed their home for sale earlier that year, and this whole incident led them to immediately leaving for a new school. The family believes that Michael Hawkins Jr. was a target because his parents decided to list their house for sale. Maybe there were some annoyed teenagers or fans of the school that were mad that he was leaving because he was that dang good. His father decided to take the kids out of school, and then they would decide to transfer, but they had to hold an eligibility hearing to determine his fate, and that was not taken too kindly by his dad. He said, quote, "They just want to make it tough on us. They are bitter and they want to make it tough on us, and there's no reason to attach that to the form, and there's no reason to do that." According to the form, which both the athlete and the previous school are required to fill out, a hearing in this case is only required if it's requested by a committee member in the new district. If ruled ineligible, the Hawkins brothers would not be allowed to play varsity football and would instead have to play JV. But they ended up getting the case. They would decide to leave for Frisco Emerson High School, which was located in McKinney, Texas, and they would end up doing really well. Hawkins by this time was a blue-chip 4-star quarterback and would decide to pick the school he was destined to go to, the Oklahoma Sooners. Why Oklahoma? Well, he said the culture in Norman, paired with his relationships with coaches Jeff Lebby and Brett Venables, stood out to him, and they decided to call Oklahoma his new home. He He said, quote, "Since Coach Venables has got here, the culture has changed a lot. And with Coach Levy, the relationship is great. Just as watching film and going over a lot of things, we are clicking, and the relationship is really good." Hawkins chose Oklahoma over Alabama, Arkansas, and a strong relationship with TCU because of Kendall Briles. As a senior, he would end up going crazy, as according to Max Preps, he ended up running for 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns, ran for over 100 yards in 5 games that season, and threw for 3,039 yards and 41 scores with only 3 interceptions. But things would change as Jeff Levy would take the head coaching job at Mississippi State, and he would now have to play for offensive coordinator Seth Littrell instead, which ultimately would not bother him. He was seen as a safe bet, as scouts liked his speed and his mental intangibles, and he also only had 10 interceptions in his last 2 years, so he took care of the football. According to 24/7 Sports, Hawkins Jr. was a 4-star recruit, the number 20 quarterback, and the 297th best player in the class of 2024. So how'd he end up doing in Norman? Well, to start out his time at Oklahoma, I want to talk about a funny story. There was a fan who wrote on Twitter saying that he looked forward to seeing Hawkins Jr. excel in his 3rd year in Norman after 2 years as the understudy to Jackson Arnold. To that, his father actually replied saying, quote, "Mike has never been raised to be QB2. It's not in him to take a backseat to no one, and believe that, he's coming for it all." Yeah, so Jackson Arnold was already on the roster, as the two apparently were friends back in high school, and this was their 2nd straight Dallas-Fort Worth area signal caller. Early on in spring camp, Hawkins' teammates took notice of his speed and ability to run from the pocket, especially those trying to stop him on a daily basis. Defensive lineman Trace Ford said, quote, "He's freaky fast. I mean, he's like Kyler Murray. He gets out of that pocket, people are in trouble, and he showed that every practice." Hawkins ended up being the backup quarterback, as Jackson Arnold was just too good to sit on the bench, but as Arnold started to struggle throughout September, many were wondering if Hawkins would get his opportunity. He entered that Tennessee game just before halftime with the Sooners down 16 points. He didn't try to force things, and instead played within himself and played under control. In the 4th quarter, he orchestrated a pair of touchdown drives that helped put the Sooners within striking distance, and in one play in particular, he dove into the end zone and took a huge hit. Ultimately, the rally would fall short, but it set the stage for Hawkins to take over as the starter that following week. Before that matchup, he had only appeared in a couple of snaps in that 51-3 victory over Temple, and in total against Tennessee, he went 11 of 18 for 132 yards with a touchdown and 22 yards on the ground. Going into that late September game against Auburn, he was actually named the starter. Arnold had just gone 7 of 16 for 54 yards and had not exactly won the job in his first month, so Brett Venables announced that true freshman Michael Hawkins would get a shot. He get his first opportunity on the road against Auburn, and in that game, Hawkins would go 10 of 15 for 161 yards, and more importantly, had a crazy 48-yard touchdown run, which ultimately helped them win. They beat Auburn 27-21, and he became the first true freshman to start on the road for Oklahoma in that game. In that game, he was unfazed by the hostile Jordan-Hare environment, and while the offensive output may not have been what you expected out of an Oklahoma offense, Hawkins had that big 48-yard touchdown run, and when the game was teetering in Auburn's direction, Hawkins came up with a couple of big plays, including a 60-yard pass to J.J. Hester that put the Sooners inside the 5-yard line and ultimately helped win them the game. Venables said, quote, "Mike's a very process-driven guy. He's always been mature beyond his years, and he'll do a good job. He doesn't overcomplicate things, and again, doesn't try to win the game in the first quarter. He will not let his emotions hijack, and that's what it takes to execute at this level." So now he'll be making his 2nd career start in one of the most difficult circumstances a player could ever be in. A true freshman against an arch rival who's ranked number 1 in the country. That is extremely difficult for anyone, but we will see how he plays this upcoming Saturday against Texas in the Red River game. The Longhorns are the number 1 team in the country, they have a good defense, and this will be quite the game. All eyes will be on Oklahoma, Texas this Saturday, and Michael Hawkins Jr. has an opportunity to put himself into the stratosphere in this game. I think he'll be tough to stop, but ultimately I don't think he's going to get the win against Texas, but we'll see how he does for the rest of the year. It seems like that Hawkins Jr. is now Oklahoma's quarterback, and Jackson Arnold will have to find a new school. I'm definitely curious to see how he'll do the remainder of the year and how he'll develop over time, but for now, Michael Hawkins Jr. has a great story. He's the freshman quarterback whose task is to save Oklahoma football this year, and so far, he's 1-0 and has a chance to pull off a crazy game. We'll have to wait and see though, but what do you guys think? If you're an Oklahoma fan, what do you think of Michael Hawkins Jr.? What the heck went wrong for Jackson Arnold? And what other player should I cover in my next video on the channel? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.